Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, big kick energy. We're chopping it up. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. Somebody play some damn music!
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raiders! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Thanks for joining us once again on Locked On Texas Tech. I'm Casey Cowan, and it's your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank our friends at LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football sponsor across the Locked On Podcast College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster, so post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. It's the morning after report as Tech takes down Texas 37-34 in overtime. And the morning after in West Texas this time around is sweet. Red Raiders take down the evil empire, thus doing a good deed for all of mankind. As guns are still up, horns are still down, really all around the world, throughout the galaxy. Even the aliens in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego were pumped about the Red Raiders getting one over on UT. Could it be the final time that we see the University of Texas at Jones Stadium? Hard to think that it's going to be the case permanently, but would definitely be hard to believe otherwise as far as it pertains to the immediate future. Would think that you're going to be in for some layoff of some kind as far as this series is concerned. But certainly hoping that you're able to meet them once again on all fields of play, of course, whether it's in football season, basketball season, baseball, tiddlywinks, underwater basket weaving, or whatever they might come up with next to waste $187 million on down in Austin. We'll see. As for the final salvo, if it was such a thing, was a fantastic one for Texas Tech fans to take in. Had to sweat it out really throughout the day, literally and figuratively, but was worth it at the end of it as the energy spilled over onto the field and Red Raider fans were surrounding their team for the second consecutive home game following the second consecutive overtime-involved win over a top 25 opponent. The vibes were off the charts, and of course, the energy that way as well as it typically is for Joey Maguire.
Hey, I asked you to keep fighting. You did. Said it's going to be, when we came out of half, we had 2 more rounds to fight, and you did. I told you they were going to break, and they did. Yes, sir. I told you they were going to break, and did. The reporter asked me at the end, says, what's it mean to win this game and beat Texas? I said, it doesn't mean anything to beat Texas. We're 1-0 in the Big 12. That's what it means. I'm telling y'all right now, the country's going to find out. Everything runs through Lubbock. Everything runs through Lubbock. Hey, we're the team to beat if we keep practicing to get better, if we keep practicing to be better players, if we keep playing and fighting for each other. And no matter what happens, we just say, what's next? That's all we do. Because at any point in that game, you could have quit, but you didn't. Because you are built different. And the more and more you believe that, the more and more this happens. Somebody turn on some damn music!
You love to hear it, just hitting every note. You love to hear from your head coach following a big win like that over the University of Texas, which was sweet in and of itself, but more so sweet as far as the season's interests are concerned. That Texas Tech is 1-0 there in Big 12 play. As you would come to expect now with head coach Joey Maguire, that energy, as I mentioned, off the charts. But Coach Maguire also post-game talking about that energy from the crowd, the environment, one of the better ones that we've seen there at Jones Stadium. And while you have seen some great environments, even in the previous decade of mostly irrelevance, you hadn't often seen that environment or those fans rewarded at the end of the day with a big win over an opponent that meant something. But you had that as part of the recipe there on Saturday, and Coach Maguire spent some time after the game talking about what was happening in the stands and how that impacted what was happening on the field.
I will tell you, the fans today were absolutely amazing. I mean, you could feel the energy. It wasn't Tim today, it was Kitley going, oh my God, this place is so loud right now. And our kids feed off of that, and then I know the more and more we get these sellouts and we get the Red Raiders behind us, where we get 60 every single week when we're playing at the Jones, it makes a big difference for us, and we got, what do we got, 4 more, I think, here, and there should be 4 sellouts. I mean, I'm asking everybody to help us out. We got some big games at home, and we need everybody here.
Already had some great home crowds so far this season, with a few more opportunities to go. And I think, as Coach Maguire alludes to there, you are impacting what is happening on the field whenever you've got that type of energy in the stands. It was just really incredible to see, and no doubt one of the more enjoyable ball games to take in there at Jones Stadium in quite some time. As far as what was happening on the field between the lines, just hard to compare, I think, the resiliency of this team to some of what we have seen in seasons gone by. I've mentioned before that I've really felt like you have seen a football program that, from a culture standpoint, has become a little bit tougher. I think you saw that actually under Matt Wells. There are a lot of things not to like about how that era went and some of the results you got on the field, but I thought they were a tougher-minded, kind of more resilient or tenacious football team under Matt Wells than they were under Cliff Kingsbury, and you really hope that that was going to be sustained and built upon, if nothing else, from the previous era whenever Joey Maguire and his staff took over here in Lubbock, and it's easy to see that certainly you have been able to sustain that and then some, as you are in a ball game once again where over and over and over the game could have been, you could have been resigned to the fact, I guess I should say, as far as taking another loss in a series that has been lopsided, but the Red Raiders refused to go out that way. And I can't believe what we actually saw transpire as far as the statistics, and you see some of them there on the screen if you're joining us on YouTube. But a lot of the things that we talked about being so dangerous for the Red Raiders as far as what Texas might be able to do, well, Tech was actually the one that was flipping that script and doing it to them. Whenever you see things like the time of possession battle just dominated by the Red Raiders, 35 minutes to just over 24 for the Longhorns. Texas Tech runs 100 plays to only 60 for the University of Texas. The defense for the Longhorns was on the field the vast majority of the day. And I really felt like, as you go back to some of the shows last week that we did, I think Chris agreed with me for the most part, that the big danger for Texas Tech was going to be that their defense was going to be kind of hung out to dry and be on the field for the vast majority of the game, given that you hadn't seen a whole. Is not the case this time around. You've got to give so much credit, of course, to Donovan Smith and company, and we'll get back to Smith in just a moment and some individual efforts, but I thought you really had some complementary football played, because you continued to see some really good defense, some reliable defense, some defense that even when put in some bad positions here or there, and those were fewer and further between this time around than they had been in some previous games, but nonetheless, you saw a defense under Tim DeRuyter that was able to be counted on once again. Turnover margin, another thing, again, you thought may not be so much in your favor just going off of past results here this season so far. Texas has been pretty clean in that column. Obviously, the Red Raiders had a nightmarish start to the season whenever it came to giving the football away, but that wasn't the case over the weekend. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest plays of the game, of course, there when Bijan Robinson, the mustard man, put it on the turf. Just could not believe that you saw what was probably one of, or if not the best individual football player in the game make that kind of mistake or give up the ball in that moment in the game. But that's the kind of day that it was for the Red Raiders. And of course, that was good news for everyone involved in red and black. I don't know that that's anything that you could have really expected, though, going into the game, because obviously, as I mentioned, Robinson is as good as it gets as far as individual football players in that game over the weekend. And as we talked about last week, this was going to be the first of 2 weeks back-to-back that you probably were going to see the two best individual ball carriers that you would see all season long, that being Bijan Robinson and Deuce Vaughn for K-State, who we will see coming up in Manhattan next time around. Obviously, The Purple Wildcats got a big win in Norman, Oklahoma. So some momentum for both the teams that are going to be involved in next week's matchup. But whether it was time of possession, dominating the football, keeping their defense out on the field, extending drives, or limiting what the Texas ground game was able to do in general, there were just a lot of things statistically that if you would have told, I think, a Tech fan prior to the game, this is the way that it's going to go, they would have very likely anticipated some positive results, just like what we got, thankfully, at Jones Stadium over the weekend. And you got some extra time. We're getting some free football here so far this season at Jones Stadium. Never going to be mad at that, especially whenever the result is what the result has been for the Red Raiders against Houston and against the University of Texas. And, man, the stones, the marbles of some of these guys just I don't know if there are words to actually describe what we have seen from some individuals. Primarily, I think you have to start offensively with the quarterback in Donovan Smith, just because there's been so much time spent on conversation around that position. I expect to see that die down at least for a period of a week before we get back to a football game. But what more could you have asked for from Donovan Smith, who was not reined in, was not limited, was not handcuffed by Zach Kittley after some really rough outings as far as the turnover margin was concerned. We saw him still put it in the air 56 times, did not throw an interception in this ball game, got into the end zone twice through the air, and was also able to get into the end zone as a runner as well, where he provided some good things for you as a ball carrier. But 38 for 56, 331, 2 TDs through the air and one on the ground. I mean, that's all conference kind of stuff from Donovan Smith. And I think we understand for the most part that your eyes will tell you here or there when you see some plays made by Donovan that he's got all conference kind of capability if he can string some things together and be a little bit more consistent as far as the way that he is managing a football game. But did an excellent job of that over the weekend against Texas. And as we mentioned before, you can talk about statistics. You can talk physically about some of the things that he does for his team also. But what we really don't see, don't hear is what's going on in that huddle, what's going on the sideline as far as rallying the troops, so to speak. Because in another game like you had against the Longhorns and like what you did against the Cougars, you needed plenty of that as far as on-field leadership. And I have no doubt that Donovan Smith was a big part of what you were able to do there. I love to see, and I'll credit Chris Level here, the production from Miles Price. Had his biggest day of the season so far. Didn't get into the end zone, but caught 13 for 98 yards on the day. And we talked last week, fantasy-wise, if there was one you had to pick out, one Red Raider you had to pick out to be productive against Texas, who would it be? And we settled on Miles Price. And Chris was certainly right about that. And you saw him avenge what was a regrettable loss a couple of years ago, something that he talked about with Chris on the Joey Maguire radio show last week. But love to see that production from Price. Chris told us last week on the show as well that this would be about the healthiest version of Miles Price that we had seen so far in 2022. He, of course, has been a little bit banged up, but was looking like for the most part he was feeling good, and the numbers would tell you that as well. And love to see a productive day. You see some big catches made and some of that involvement in the offense that we hadn't seen so much maybe through the first few weeks. But, man, some big plays there, whether we're talking about Cup or Tharp, and would like to see a whole heck of a lot more of that if you have the opportunity. That was really the pleasant surprise, I think, at least as far as my opinion goes. What happened on the offensive side of the ball. It was just really hard to expect that. If you thought Texas Tech was going to stay in this football game or win this football game, I think, at least according to me, for the most part, you would be looking at a team that defensively was really making some big plays. Maybe you got something going in the special teams game as well, and you did those things, but you coupled that with a productive and mostly consistently productive offense throughout the day, and that's why you were able to come up with a win at the end of overtime. Would love to see that sustain itself. Will remain as the biggest question mark, I think, rolling into another ball game until we really see that shake out week after week after week. But the great thing about the way the schedule is shaping up, even though it's huge as far as the challenge goes to go on the road in back-to-back weeks in Manhattan and in Stillwater, you love those challenges for a team that should be playing with some confidence this week and maybe building off of some of what they experienced as far as these successes Saturday against Texas, again, particularly on the offensive side of the football. Of course, you saw successes on the defensive side of the football as well. Had another great day from Krishawn Merriweather. Tyree Wilson just continues to be a guy that is earning money every Saturday as far as his professional aspirations are concerned. Texas Tech was getting into the Longhorn backfield pretty consistently. You saw plays made behind the line of scrimmage and just outstanding efforts, especially from guys like what you got there in the secondary with Reggie Pearson and Rashad Williams, Malik Dunlap, Muddy Waters. I think those guys played every snap of the game, every defensive snap of the game. Maybe Muddy Waters was out for one, but just incredible individual efforts once again from some of those guys on the defensive side of the football, as it really seems like you are now giving yourself plenty to believe in as far as that rush defense goes. And I'm shuddering even a little bit to say that before you go take on Deuce Vaughn, who is trouble in a nutshell, literally. I mean, not a guy that is huge as far as stature goes, but he is huge as far as impact. So still got another day to prove what you are as a rush defense. But as we saw some nice things statistically over the first few weeks of the season, we've been asking on Locked On Texas Tech, is this to be believed in, or will it be kind of a non-conference mirage? And I don't think there's anything mirage about it at this point after you take on one of the best individual ball carriers in the country, and you're able to not only limit what he's doing on the day overall, but you come up again with one of the biggest plays of the day and forcing that Bijan Robinson fumble. I'm sure he can console himself with his mustard millions. So we wish him the best. As a mustard connoisseur myself, I hope he remains in that space, because I think mustard innovation is always a good idea. What else seems like a good idea at this point in time? Trey Wolff as a field goal kicker, possibly. We'll discuss that and more coming up next on this morning after report of Locked On Texas Tech. But first, you're assembling your team this fall, and much like Joey Maguire, that's where it all starts as far as your chance of having success with your business. Need the right people in the right spots, and LinkedIn Jobs is here to make that happen. They're going to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools like screening questions, making it easy to focus on the right candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hopefully hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs right now standing by. Go see how they can help you to find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply with LinkedIn. Glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech. It's your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network, basking in the glow of a 37-34 win in overtime over the University of Texas. Red Raiders now improved to 3-1 as they hit the road for back-to-back weeks in Big 12 play. 1-0 now as far as the conference standings are concerned, and there's just some poetic justice, I suppose, even early in the conference race, to see a standings list that includes Kansas at the top, UT and OU at the bottom. Don't know how long it will remain that way, but let's savor the flavor while it does. And I certainly hope rolling into this week that Trey Wolff is savoring the flavor of being Captain Clutch, because the dude is probably at the top of the list, maybe there 1A, 1B. With Donovan Smith as far as the all marvelous team is concerned. The intestinal fortitude on display from Trey Wolff is just incredible to witness, and so happy for that guy to come up clutch in several spots over the weekend, because it really wasn't until you got into the second half and in some of those big moments that you started calling on Trey Wolff, but had a 27-yarder that was good there in the third quarter, was good from 45 there towards the end of the fourth with 21 seconds remaining. And then, of course, knocking down the game winner from 20 in overtime. And let's not forget, it was just a few weeks ago where we were really questioning whose job this was going to be. And this is a guy who had this job before and has now had to come full circle to recapture the position and be successful within it. And I would have to go back and really look at the game log for Trey Wolff. He's had some nice successful days, and certainly being productive has not been a problem for him. But clutch kicks, crunch time moments, I'm not sure that we've ever seen anything as far as the spots that Trey Wolff has been put into before in his time as a Red Raider. So goes to say a lot about what he's able to do as far as some of the intangibles are concerned, but of course also what he was able to do just as far as outright production was concerned. And speaking of outright production, how about content production from our guy Dana Beers of Barstool Sports, who was in the LBK, and I hope he enjoyed his time. And I have to ask, after seeing his post-game video as he fled the stands and took to the field with thousands of other screaming, celebrating Red Raiders, did Dana Beers throw possibly the number one most legendary horns down that we've ever seen? I'm not sure that I could really go back to a time when I've seen a more devastating horns down than what you're seeing on the screen right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you are listening on podcast, you can check it out there on the Twitter page at Locked On Tech. But you've got the side eye from the cheerleader, the really spoiled look from the other UT cheerleader, and just the vacant, glassy-eyed, like a naked Matthew McConaughey playing the bongos look from the University of Texas mascot. I don't know if this guy has a name, if he's like Styrofoam Bevo or what they call him exactly, but there's nothing but devastation in those eyes, my friend. There's nothing but devastation. Drink it in. And thank you, Mr. Beers, for an all-time memorable moment. I don't think we'll need a whole lot of help remembering this one in years to come or for a very long time. It was as enjoyable of a day, just as far as makes it just that much more enjoyable. I'm kind of predicting here. Go ahead and mark the time. I'm predicting maybe we see a baby boom roughly, July or so, sometime next summer, of young Red Raiders hitting the ground with names like Joey, Donovan, Horns Down, Little Horns Down Johnson, and how about Wolf? I'm soon to be married, and I've got intentional plans to be germinating very soon as well. And I think I may go with Wolf Cowan, probably a fighter pilot, if I had to peg what he may turn into at some point in his life. Could Wolf be a girl's name? Not sure, but things to ponder as I ponder the future of Wolf Cowan. You make your choice, but mark my words, in the 806 and beyond, Red Raider baby boom coming up, I think sometime this summer. Of course, we got a whole lot more coming up for you this week on Locked On Texas Tech. After Locked On Texas Tech every day, when you make it your first listen, make Locked On Big 12 your second listen with our guy Josh Neighbors as he's taking you around the league to get you ready for the slate of games with experts on the ground in Big 12 towns all across the USA. That's Locked On Big 12 with Josh Neighbors. Thank you for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day. The morning after report, a joyous one this time around. Hope to have another following a road trip to Manhattan, Kansas. Please subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts if you have not already. And join us coming up Monday morning, 7 a.m. is when the premiere rolls out on YouTube each weekday for Locked On Texas Tech with myself and Chris Level. For Chris, I'm Casey Cowan. Have a great one. We'll see you on the other side on Locked On Texas Tech.